listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. I gotta tell you something, people. Back when I was in college, I heard a song called Forever Young by a band called Alphaville. And the song touched me. I don't know why. It resonated with me. It was maybe the melody, the singing. It always stuck with me. And to this day, I still listen to that song a lot. I will come home after being out with my wife for dinner or out with friends, and I'll pour a glass of wine, and I'll put that song on because it always makes me feel good. And what's cool is, not only am I talking to the man who sang and wrote it, but the symphonic video for that song came out today. And from Alphaville, my guest is Marian Gold. How you doing, Marian?
Hello, hey, nice to talk to you.
So,
from where are you calling at the moment?
I'm in New Jersey. I'm right outside Philadelphia.
Okay, all right.
And you're in Germany, or no? Where are you right now?
No, I'm in Belgium at the moment. We doing a concert tonight in Ostende, which is a harbor town close to the canal, and we had some problems because our keyboardist he caught COVID. And we had to find a replacement. And the very last moment, we found somebody, because we have, for each and every member, apart from myself, we have another person that could jump in so situations like that. So we were well organized, but we couldn't reach this guy, Christopher. We couldn't reach him for quite a while, but now it works. It seems that we are able to play tonight. I'm looking very much forward to that.
Now, I know you have some shows in September, but, you haven't done a lot of shows lately. So that must stink when you have it all set up and then someone gets sick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also, I mean, the situation at the moment as a whole is very strange because at the moment, I mean, we did this symphonic album, Eternally Yours, which is, I think, out by the end of September. And I mean, now when we're doing the concerts, we're in a complete different mode because what we're doing at the moment with Alphaville is more like a rock and roll show. It has nothing to do with orchestra or symphonic music. That will start at the beginning of next year, 23, when we're touring Europe with a big orchestra with exactly the same orchestra which we have recorded the album. So I'm living in two worlds at the moment, and it's sometimes a bit confusing.
I watched the Forever Young video, this symphonic one today. It just came out, and I want to ask you about that because to me, that's what music and art is about. You look like you're having so much damn fun in that video. You're smiling. Tell me about the shooting of that video and how it got started.
Yeah, it was. Shortly before we were ready to record the video, I told the guys from the band, "Come on, put on some colorful clothes and let's have a party with the orchestra, and let's do it like as if it was live. I mean, it's not live; we were acting to a playback, but in fact, we had lots of fun, and I wanted to have." That everybody sees the video can see that we all having fun, and it's because I think in these times of war and of confusion, all these really terrible things that are happening at the moment, I thought let's do something positive, and I think Forever Young is a perfect tune for this, because to every situation it has an elementary answer. I mean, it answers to many contradictional things. It gives. I mean, the people play it on on weddings, birthdays, but also on funerals or whatever. So it seems that the song has really a kind of impact on persons in very different situations, a positive impact of persons in very different situations. I think this is a phenomenon about it. And I actually don't understand it as a whole, why it is like that. Because when we wrote the song 40 years ago, we would not think about all these characteristics of the song. And actually, if we had known what kind of monster the song would become, we would probably fuck it all up, you know. That would have make us really nervous.
When you wrote the
this song is dangerous.
explain the lyrics. When you wrote that song, what were you trying to? What was the message you were trying to make? A statement you're trying to make?
The message is we are all mortals, and this is not a tragedy. It's not a tragedy. It's like, you know, it's like the chorus line that says, you know, forever young, do you really want to live forever? It's a question, you know, and the question means, you know, there's some sense of doubt behind it. Is it really a good idea to be forever young, to be immortal? And I think, no, it's not. It's not a good idea. Although deep in myself, you know, I wish I was immortal. I mean, nobody wants to die. And this is a big question about the big riddle of our existence, you know. How can we exist just to fade away again? You know, there is no explanation. We have religious answers to this question, but the very last answer we will have when we die. But I mean, on the other hand, if you imagine we would never fade, we would stay forever there. I mean, it's a nightmare, you know. There's no room enough for an idea like that. Even in an infinite universe, it would be too much.
Exactly.
And the song, I think, when people listen to the song, it's a little bit of solace for them. You know, it gives solace to this big, tragic riddle what we all carry around with us. We'll never find an answer, and the song gives us a little peace of mind about this.
Well, what's amazing about that song also is, as I said, I heard it when it came out in college, and it stuck with me. And then when Napoleon Dynamite was a big movie hit over here, it was in that, and a whole new generation caught on to it. As a performer, that must be great. As a creator, that you hit a second wave of group of people, and now they'll introduce people. How does that feel when you know your song is 40 years old, but there's some songs that came out 40 years ago, and they just stopped? Your song, this has gone on. As someone who created that must be a wonderful feeling inside.
Yeah, but it's not that I don't feel responsible for that. You know, we created a song, and we put it into the world, and now, you know, it does its own thing in the world, you know, and I'm very grateful that the song is still so popular today, or maybe even more popular than it ever was in the past. And I'm very grateful for that. But sometimes it's really, I have the feeling that when we perform, so when we sing the song at the end of our concerts, for instance, you know, it's just like, actually, it feels like I sing the song of somebody else, you know, somebody, I don't know, somebody who, another variation of myself. I have no idea. But the song has a kind of life on itself, you know, and when people ask me, come on, tell me, how was it like when you wrote the song, you know, what is the trick? You know, I cannot tell. It's just pure coincidence, you know. We just, for us, at the very moment when we created the song, it was just another song that we created. When it was finished and we were listening to it, we actually knew that we had something very special in our hands. But that happened to almost every song at the beginning when we started writing songs, because, I mean, that we were at least able to create songs at all, you know, was such a wonder for us. And it was because we had this means of, you know, the sequences, the drum machines, all these things, because nobody of us could play any natural instrument. You know, we were just basically fans of music, and then suddenly these toys appear, these little sequences, these little boxes, rhythm boxes, and all these things that we could afford from the little money we had, and our little monophonic synthesizers, you know, and suddenly we changed parts, you know, from being a fan to being a musician. And for us, it was a dream come true. And whenever we wrote a new song, we said, "Oh, we wrote a new song. We can do it. Fantastic!" You know.
Well, and it's funny. You weren't musicians. Well, but you were fans who were some of the bands you were fans of when you were younger?
Oh, I mean, it started with Johnny Rivers Live at the Whiskey A Go Go. That was the first record I ever bought in my life. I had about 12 Deutschmarks, is the amount of about $9 or something, and there was only one record that I could buy with this one long player that I could buy this in this little market in my hometown, Hereford. That was this record. It was a used record, so the price was lower. And I bought it without knowing what music was on it. I was a huge Beatles fan and a Kings fan, and so I was listening to this. It was American rhythm and blues, and I did not like it in the beginning. It was not the kind of music that I expected, and then, but that was the only record that I saw. I listened to it again and again and again, and after 1 week, I loved the music on it, and it's a fucking great album. It's really, really good album. Johnny Rivers, he's a genius. A live person, he's just, amazing on stage. I'm really sorry that I never saw him performing live. And the Whiskey A Go became a place of my fantasy, where all these fantastic artists would perform. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors were the house band. Imagine that. They were the house band of the Whiskey A Go, and so many others. Jefferson Airplane. So I thought, one day, when I grow up, when I'm an adult, I travel to the States, I go to LA, and I go to Whiskey A Go and listen to the great bands that perform there. And then after a while, I forgot about everything. And I became an adult, and I think it was 2017. We did a tour through the U.S. in some major cities, and we came to L.A. and we did the show at the Starlet Bowl. And after the show, I was driving back down Sunset, and I saw the sign, the Whiskey A Go Go, and it all came back to me. I said, "What? It still exists?" I asked the driver, "Is it still going?" And so I said, "Yes, it's still going." And are bands playing bands there? Yeah, there are still bands playing. And could we play there? And he said, "Everybody can play there." and I said, "Wow!" And I talked to my manager. I said, "You know what? Next year I want to do a show at the Whiskey A Go Go." And my manager said, "Oh, it's a very small venue. It's just 400 people. It will be a financial disaster when we have to come from Europe here and then just play in front of 400 people." And I said, "I don't give a shit. I just want to play there." So the next year we played 2 consecutive nights there. And it was a fulfillment of my childhood's dream. And the greatest thing was that when I was a little kid, I thought I would go there one day as a fan of music and listen to other people's music there when they perform on stage. But meanwhile, I became a musician myself, and I could go inside of this place, go on the stage, and play to the audience in this place, and it was just absolutely fantastic.
I lived in LA for 20 years, and I'll tell you, it is something as a music fan. When you go into that place, it's beat up, it's old, but when you walk in, it's one of those places you just feel history in the walls. There's also a bar in West Hollywood called Barney's Beanery, and that's the place where Janis Joplin punched Jim Morrison in the face. So that's a bar you go, "Oh, I got to check that place out." So how was it getting on that stage? How did it feel when you were on the stage? I'm sure the show sold out because everyone wants to see you. What did it feel like? Did you go back to feeling like a little kid, like this is my dream? I'm on the whiskey, or were you like, eh?
No, normally I don't have stage fright or things like that. I never had that. Actually, some of my colleagues, who are really very sophisticated artists, they die 10 times before they go on stage. When they're on stage, then they become professional and they do the show and everything is fine. But before that, they really have really problems. You know, they're like, whoa, like that. I'm not like that. And I always felt a little bit, it made me feel unprofessional because all these other great artists, they had this problem, you know, and I would like to have this problem too, to make me a professional person, because they had it, but I never had it, unfortunately. So there at the Whiskey, it was a little bit like that. It was a little bit like, so I went up the stairs. I remember when I entered this club for the first time, it was empty. We were just checking the location and what we could do about it and where we could place. We did a documentary with cameras and all these things, and so we had to check the place, and there was this little stage, you know, in a triangular stage in one corner of the room, and I went up and I just walked from one side of the stage to the other, then back to the middle, and I stood there and looked there, and wow, I'm here. Fantastic. You know, it was just like that. And what I'm going to do about it, what songs we're going to play. And yeah, and then at the very, very night when we did the first show, it was a little bit like that. It was a little bit like that. I mean, it made me a little bit nervous, you know, because it was like returning from a long, long journey to a place I've never been before. I mean, returning to a place you've never been before. It's really strange, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's deja vu. I know, it's one of those things you sit there and you go,
yeah. Because wow. I imagine so many times and go there, and now I finally was there. You know, it was just like a homecoming in a way.
So the new double album, Eternally Yours. What made you decide to get a symphony involved? Because a lot of artists have done that and people love it, but have you been a fan of symphonic sound, or is it just something that you said this will work great with Alphaville?
Yeah, I think we thought that Alphaville music is the perfect, probably a perfect medium, you know, to or a perfect means to be transported into this symphonic area. And actually we were right, you know, because when we finally did the production, it was not a big task to bring these all these songs into the symphonic shape with this fantastic orchestra that we had at our hands. And I think it is because, I mean, when we started, we were a synthesizer band, and a synthesizer is, in a way, nothing else but a big orchestra. I mean, you can create so many different sounds, and some sounds even sound like flutes or violins or just an ensemble of several instruments, you know, if you have a polyphonic synthesizer. And so, I mean, there's a natural closeness between, you know, when you produce or when you compose on a synthesizer, the direction of the music goes a little bit into the same direction than music created by an orchestra. And so there was this natural relationship between these two genres. And so that was the reason that the idea, you know, sooner or later doing an album like that hang upon our heads like the sword of Damocles in a way, you know. So somebody had to do it, otherwise the sword would kill us. So we had to do it, and we had a certain idea how we would do it, because a lot of bands, for instance, what Metallica did with their orchestra, what I found I'm a great Metallica fan, but I found this album a little bit disappointing because I expected much more. They're using the orchestra more like a tapestry in the background, and they're playing the songs more or less the same, and then the orchestra accompanies them and makes a bigger environment, creates a cathedral-like environment around the music, which is very nice, but it's not very, not very innovative for a band as Metallica is, which is a very innovative, fantastic band. And what we try to achieve with this album is that when you listen to the music, it gives you the impression that all these songs that are on the album had been written in the 19th century and then played by an by a classical orchestra. I'm not saying that our music is classical music. I mean, it's definitely not. But as if these songs came from that period of time, and an orchestra would have taken them and interpret them, and so the production, the star of the production is the orchestra, not the members of Alphaville. It's the orchestra with all the wonderful people that were in the orchestra that interpreted. I mean, we were just basically the producers of the album. The band, as such, as active musicians, does not exist inside this. I mean, we did a few overdubs for some songs, like Jacob played a few drums, and Carsten played a few little synthesizer bits on Sounds Like a Melody, for instance. But the basic thing, and most of, I would say 99% or 95% of the whole album is just played by the orchestra, nothing else. And this is a big difference to many other similar productions, that because it changed also the outcome. It changed the songs. They sound very different, if you compare them to the original, because you have to change them. You have to do something about it that it fits perfectly with the orchestra. And that was the adventure. That was the task and the fascinating voyage, to see, once we started with one song and we arranged it for the orchestra, to see how it slowly changed and became something else, although it has the same subject, it has the same topic, it has the same contents of lyrics, and the meaning is the same, but the perspective is different, and suddenly you become aware of very many different things that you couldn't see before or couldn't hear before, when you're listening to the original version. And it was just a fantastic experience, and we are all changed. The whole band of Alphaville is completely changed by this production, and I think it will have a great impact on our further productions.
As an artist, it must be exciting because as you said, it's another take on a song you created, and a lot of people they don't want to change things, and it's very open-minded of you to sit there and have another take and go a different angle with something you created. I mean, was that hard in the beginning?
In the beginning,
when you had first had the idea to do this symphonic album, was it hard for you to think that my song is going to go in a different direction, or was it exciting to you?
Yeah, it was exciting. It was. I mean, we had really great expectations. It was just like. For us, it was wide territory into which we were sailing, and we are very, very curious people. Curiosity, is the main characteristic of an artist, and we just expected so much. Many of our expectations would not become true, but other things became true that we would never ever expect, and. As such, it became just a wonderful experience, and it really widened our minds and also our capabilities, probably for the future. How we compose, how we write music, how we look at music, and at the whole process of production. It's an orchestra is the greatest instrument that exists, in my opinion, but it doesn't mean that from now on we will only produce orchestral music. But you can take a lot of these experiences into the rock and roll or the pop area and work with them. It gives you lots of hints and lots of inspiration.
Now, when you said you're going to be doing a symphonic tour, now are you the band leader then, or how does that work? Like, because when it's you and your show tonight, it's the band, so it's thing. But when now all of a sudden it's you, the band, and the orchestra, how does that work out in a live performance? I mean, you still are the front man, but you're not conducting the band. How is it going to work?
No. there are so many people involved in a project like this, and I mean, we as a band were basically the producers, and we gave like hints, advices, or ideas. We had two librettists, two arrangers that had a great experience, a great knowledge about how to write notations for orchestra, because it's really a complicated thing. I mean, as a pop or a rock unit, you have basically homophonic instruments. That means you have like lots of chordal instruments, and so we have chord sequences and stuff like that. Basically, a guitar produces chords, a piano, a synthesizer produces chords. An orchestra is a complete different thing. Almost every instrument in an orchestra is a monophonic instrument. It can't play chords. So when you have this chord structure of a song, you have to find, like, for each and every instrument its individual line, and they all have to fit together. So it becomes totally polyphonic, very complicated, like a web, a very complicated thing. And it's not only complicated, but it has also to sound beautiful, because it offers lots of possibility of beautiness, and that was a great experience we had. So sometimes, I played a really important part in this decisions. How we would carry on with this production. There's no doubt about it. But I would have been totally lost without the others from the band, and especially also without the two arrangers, Max Knoth and Christian Lohr. They did a fantastic job. So because they had to understand what we wanted, and then they had to put it into notations, which is a big thing. So I'm probably a leading factor in the band, because I'm the last original member anyway. I'm the last Mohican, so to speak, and also the oldest person. So respect, please. But I mean, you need a lot of support in a project like that. You lost if you have not support by the others.
Now you're doing a lot of videos for this. You've had a few videos come out for the new album. Are you going to do videos for all the songs?
I wish. It really, I mean, it depends how much we can steal money from the record company.
How much has it changed shooting a video from the 80s to now?
It changed a lot, because I mean, now you make a video for, I don't know, $5,000 or something. I mean, it's for ridiculous sums. When we started in the 80s, the video costs were between 60 and 120,000 or something. I mean, enormous sums. I mean, if it would come, I mean, even whole album productions, there's less money involved. When you do production, everything has become much cheaper, and but there is something really nice about it, and it's not only concerning videos, but concerning creative work as such. I mean, for instance, when we started making music, we had all these little toys, and we had not very much knowledge about music, just the music that was playing in our heads, and we were completely reduced to really minimal things. So the only weapon we had in our hands was our creativity, and I think today it's still until today it's the same. If you want to achieve something in a production, reduce the outside possibilities to a minimum, because then it expands your imagination and your creativity. And if you do it the other way around, you become a sleeper in your own production. And I think this is really if some starting musician would ask me for a tip or something, I would just say that. I would just say, just try to minimize your environment and expand because that expands your imagination and your creative capabilities, and that is the most important thing.
Now you have a podcast too. Tell me about your podcast.
The podcast.
I saw that on your website. Your website is great. It's spot on.
Yeah, it's also. I mean, Alphaville is from the beginning was a kind of collective of many friends, and all through the years I always worked with friends, and it's also the reason, for instance, that Bernard and me, we're still friends. Bernard is not in the band anymore, but we're still very, very close. And also the designer of the website is a friend of the band, and the podcast actually, my oldest daughter Lily, she's 24 now, and she started musical management, all these things around it, and she just finished her studies, and so she's just starting her own company, and I took her into this consultation with the rec company just to show her, give her an impression about how these things take place. And when we were talking about promotional activities, we were talking about the possibility of a podcast. And then Lily, my daughter, says, "Oh, I could do it. I could interview you, Daddy." I said, "No way. All my life, I put the family out of the business. Nobody knows anything about my family, so not at all." And then I thought about it and said, "Listen, wait, she's just 20. She's 24 now. She's an adult person." And I said, "Yeah, maybe it's interesting when she does the interview, because I mean it's a more intimate situation. She's a person I totally trust, and everything will be in a different. It's a different setting, and it's exactly so it was. I mean, I think this podcast is. I think nobody else has done it before like this. And I think also the results are quite interesting, because it's a different procedure, and it ends in different content, and more interesting content probably.
Now, where did the name Alphaville come from?
It's from a movie from Jean-Luc Godard that I saw about the time when I was thinking about the name for the band. And it's really a very confusing and very abstract and surreal movie, it's from the Nouvelle Vague. It's like Jean-Luc Godard was an author or is a director. He comes from this French film school, which is called Nouvelle Vague, and from this perspective, in this setting, he tried to realize a Secret Service man, fighting against a computer, and this that rules the city, and the name of the city is Alphaville, and it's a strange movie, really strange movie. I'm always attracted by bizarre things. So.
Well,
and then there is this moment when the headlights of a car, shine on the sign, the road sign of the city, Alphaville, and it flashed to my face, from the TV screen. I said, "This is the name for the band."
Well,
I think we have to stop now.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Well, real quick, Marian Gold. Where'd that name come from?
Marian Gold. Man, Marian Gold is. When I was a little kid, I was a great fan of a German Schlager singer from the 50s. His name is Freddie Quinn. And he was a total hero for me. And he had a song. It was the German version of 16 Tons. She got 16 tons, da 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 da. And the German version was Marianne. And went like, sie ist Marianne und war sein Schiff, fehlte die Treue, als keiner begriff. And it was a very thrilling story about a sailor who starts working on a ship, and then he becomes, after years and years, he becomes the captain of the ship, and the ship is his destiny, and in the end, the ship, takes him to the ground of the sea, and he dies. And So it's a very dramatic song. And as a 6-year-old, I was just absolutely fascinated about this. And when I was thinking 25 years later about an artist name for me, because my regular German name is Hartwig Schierbaum, I thought, well, I'm an artist now. I could choose another name, which is a great thing, that if you have the chance, not very many people have this chance, So I was thinking about a name, and I came up with Marian without a certain reason. And then in a later interview, we were talking about this Freddie Quinn, and then I remembered this song, and it was just a subconscious decision that I did at that moment. And it's because, Marian is the name of a ship, and this ship carries this person through life, just like a name carries a person through life. And probably this is the connection. So that is the reason for Marian.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time, Marian. People, go to the website, alphaville.info. The album comes out September 22nd. It's a double album, symphonic, sounds like melody. Go to YouTube. The video for Forever Young just came out. There's a bunch of other videos. Their new song, Eternally Yours, is there. So thank you, Marian. People, I'm Steve Cooper. Follow me on Twitter at Cooper Talk. Email me at Cooper at coopertalk.net. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank